Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Ghoul Dude, and we are picking up and probably going to finish off this series with the colorless, unless you guys really want me to cover the multicolored lands that in my opinion are probably the lands that land in that part of selection of, those type of decks. I mean, I don't know what to really call how to choose my picks for lands that land. I know there's a ginormous amount of different types of lands that can be played that you can play. And man, oh man, did we just get a huge announcement yesterday or day before yesterday, and it blew me out the water. I'll probably be releasing another video later on today discussing my opinions on that. It's a lot to take in on that one. I almost would want to like clip the different sections of that video to go along with my conversation, but I don't know how well that would go. Probably wouldn't care, seeing as I'm as small as I am. But nevertheless, we're going to continue on with this type of content. Thankfully, there are no ancient tombs in this list. But we're going to go on ahead and get into the Lands That Land Colorless Edition, starting out with the Boseiju Who Shelters All. It's a legendary land, which some of these are legendary lands that you'll come to find out, especially from the older sets. Yeah, it looks like it's just most of the ones from the older sets that are legendary lands. And some of these will intertap, just like some of the other lands that we've been showcasing recently, but some of these will just be, like just run of the mill, just cards you would probably see in the wild that I do enjoy putting in decks. So Boseiju, Who Shelters All, started it off for, you can tap it to pay 2 life, and you can add 1 generic mana to your mana pool. If that mana is spent on an instant sorcery spell, that spell can't be countered by spells or abilities. So a very interesting thing to note is if you have an ability that allows you to make extra mana, you can make more than 1 instant or sorcery uncounterable, which is amazing. So like say you have a what's it called, the Nyx Bloom Ancient out on the battlefield that triples. That is a mana ability. You are making mana, so you are probably going to get 3 colorless, and then you can make 3 instant or sorcery spells uncounterable. That is legitimately wild. I love it. That is just awesome. The little rules interactions that you can levy in your favor are just amazing. But let's go on ahead and move on to Pit of Offerings. This is a uncommon or a common from Rivals of Ixalan. No, not Lost Caverns of Ixalan. There we go. And I love the art on this one. This one's really cool. But it is a land cave. Enters tapped. And when it enters, it exiles up to 3 target cards from graveyard, so it doesn't have to be yours. But also, because you can exile 3 cards from any graveyard, you can exile all the colored spells you can, because this taps for a colorless, but this also can tap for 1 mana of any exiled cards colors. So that could still be really good if you're in a multicolor deck, or it could be super good if you're just using it as graveyard hate. Rishadan Port, regular land from Marcadian Mask, if I believe that's correct. Reprinted for this particular art that I pulled from M25, Ultimate Masters. Nope. It's not iconic, is it? Man, I can't remember. Man, it's been so long since I've seen that symbol. But 25. You could tap it to add a colorless, or you can tap 1 and tap it to tap target land. Man, that's a lot of tap. Ooh, but yeah, you could utilize this to tap an opponent's what is it? The Maze of Ith. Excuse me. Or even some of these other cards that we have on the list before they have the chance to use it. Because if you can untap, upkeep, draw, go to cast a different spell that they're not you can tap that to tap a spell, tap a land or something. Still pretty cool. Or you could tap it when it's not their turn. So it's still pretty cool. Winding Canyons is a very interesting include for me because this does tap for 1 colorless, but for 2, you can tap it into end of turn. You may play creature cards whenever you could play instants. This is a card that I think goes beautifully and amazingly in Zulashur decks because you can tap Zulashur. Zulashur is a creature that says, hey, you can play zombie spells from your graveyard. Winding Canyons allows you to play creatures from you may play creature cards whenever you can play an instant. So it gives your creatures instant speed pretty much, and then you can play great creatures from your graveyard at instant speed. Your zombies. So that's pretty wicked, pretty sick. If you're really looking to like, oh well, you just played a bunch of dudes. Well, you're gonna cast this dude, and I'm gonna play this and make you sacrifice something to keep you from capitalizing on it. Still a great land. It is getting expensive here lately. I've been looking to pick one up. I probably will be picking one up not too soon. Hall of the Bandit Lord. Legendary land. It comes into play tap, but you can tap it to pay 3. Once again, if you can find a way to add more mana from this land, its mana ability, you can use it on multiple creatures. So you can add 1, add 2, have it floating, make the creature has haste, which is still pretty cool. Sanctum of Eternity, you can tap it to add a colorless, or you can tap 2, tap it, return target commander you own from the battlefield to your hand. But you can only activate this during your turn. So, say you're, board wiping, but you want to save your commander. Just pay 2 extra and an extra land, and you can save your commander. Still pretty cool. Still pretty awesome. Detection Tower. This is one of those lands that nobody sees coming how useful it is until it's too late. Because you can tap it for a colorless, but you can also tap it for 1, tap 1 and tap it until end of turn. Your opponents and creatures your opponents control with hexproof can be the target of spells and abilities you control as though they didn't have hexproof. This would be the new Nowhere to Run static ability when it enters the battlefield that nothing can get hexproof reward anymore. This is this on a stick if you're not running black. This allows you to temporarily turn off your opponent's hexproof. It doesn't turn off the ward, but it still turns off the hexproof. Cryptic Caves is a tremendous draw spell later on in the game. You can just pretty much tap it, sacrifice it, and draw a card. If you have 5 or more lands, though. So, like I said, late game, if you need it, there it is. Emergent Zone is another one of our flashy, do something at the end of your opponent's turn where you can set up for a win on your turn of type of effect. Just your emergency win the game button, pretty much. For 1, you can tap it and add colorless, and for 1, and you can tap it, sacrifice it. You may cast spells as though they had flash. Super cool. Unfortunately, this isn't like the deserts where you can tap it, sacrifice another land, where you keep Emergent Zone. But, it is what it is. Treasure Vault is a great land from the D&D set. Tap it, add a colorless, or you can tap XX into it and sacrifice Treasure Vault and create X treasure tokens. This could be specifically great in decks that are mana hungry, like say you got flooded. So now you're running all black and no red. Well, you can tap and sacrifice this to fix your colors. Or if you have like a wilderness reclamation type effect, you can tap it, tap all your lands out, sack it, make all your treasures, wilderness reclamation trigger, untap all your lands. Now you have double the mana pretty much. Or a time and a half of mana. There we go. 1.5 times the amount of mana. Because you got to double it on X. So if you got 10 lands, you can put 5 and 5 into it. Still a great land for mana fixing. Homeward Path, another one of those lands that where you can help even the game stance a little bit. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can tap it. Each player gains control of all creatures he or she owns. You can't get everything back, but you can get your creatures at least. So that's still pretty awesome. Command Beacon is an oldie but a goodie. You can tap it for colorless, or you can tap it, sacrifice it, put your commander into your hand from the command zone. Cards like this are great in decks that are centered around constantly needing your commander on the command zone, out of the command zone, and on the battlefield, pretty much. And eventually your commander will get expensive, and sometimes you just did not build the deck to have to worry about trying to cast your commander 5 times in a row. So this is where Command Beacon comes in to kind of like smoothly, try to ease that transition. Still pretty cool. Urza Saga. This is probably one of those cards that are on the list. I kind of didn't look at the list as much. Oh, apparently I'm having an outage in my area. Not really that concerned about it. Let's see, is it in the list? Oh, wait. No, Urza Saga is not on the Game Changers list right now. So this is still pretty good. Sorry, I had to look and check to see if it actually was or not. If you're playing an artifact deck, this works really well. If you're playing colorless, it works really well. It helps you get your 0-drop mana rocks, 1-drop Soul Ring, and so on and so on. And if you're looking to try and make it to where you're constantly wanting to build those constructs, you could take turn 2 and turn 3 on building a construct. So that's still pretty cool. Helps put bodies on the floor. Next we have Arch of Araska. It has the Ascend ability, so if you control 10 or more permanents, you get to seize Blessing for the rest of the game, and that ties into its last ability. After you can tap it for colorless, you can tap 5 and tap it to draw a card, but you can only activate it if you have these cities' blessings. Card advantage, you need card advantage no matter where it comes from. If you can get lands that help you with card advantage, if you get creatures, anything, card advantage is card advantage. And finally, we have probably one of my most favorites. We have the Scavenger Grounds. It is a land. It is a desert. You can tap it for colorless, but you can also tap it to sacrifice a desert. And that's why I like it, because you can sacrifice a desert. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it has the desert type. And you can exile all graveyards. Granted, this is a little picky. You kind of got to sacrifice a desert, and you becomes very unpicky when it exiles all of them. But as long as you're not within a archetype build where it kind of matters, the Scavenger Grounds is not going to hurt you as much. All right, so that is it. What do you guys think of this is like 15 cards that I wanted to highlight for the colorless. If I missed any out, and the main prospect is to naturally only make colorless. It can't have a make another mana ability, make another color mana ability. It has to be makes colorless and does a thing or does something. But those are the ones I wanted to highlight, and that's my criteria. If you guys have any suggestions, leave them down in the comments below. I love seeing your suggestions and everything. But that's gonna be it, and I will see you guys next time in the graveyard.